Hello, listeners, and welcome to this, the 44th episode of the Heresy Accountabilities Podcast. I'm Jacob, and on this episode, I'm joined by what might be our largest cast to date.
There's a lot of us today.
Yes.
If you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourselves, gentlemen.
I'm Jack.
Dan.
I'm Duncan.
I'm John.
I'm Jamie.
And we're never going to get our introduction right.
We will never have an introduction.
Hey, you know, that's okay. Pursuant to that introduction, we are really trying to keep things rolling this show because we are thrilled to announce that we have our first hardback publication of Astartes content since the big book dropped. Today, we are going to start our discussions on Siege of Cthonia by running down the Legion inductii. And for that purpose, we do have a couple special guests joining us, less for that, more for their event shouts and updates. We are joined by Michael and Cody, and we want to thank them for being on the show with us. Before we get into any event updates or any deeper dives on rules, we do want to go ahead and do our regularly scheduled hobby shout. As for me, I do not, unfortunately, have any hobby progress to report, heresy or otherwise, so I will go ahead and throw it to John.
Okay, boys, hold on to your butts. So I started off this week working on night bases. We had a pretty good painting of chat going on with our podcast on the Memorial Day Sunday, and I was able to get some experimenting done with the night bases. Instead of priming them gray and then doing white Gundam marker, I primed them white, sealed them, then went through and oil washed gray, followed that up with another sealer, and then did the Gundam marker blue over that. So after the markers were down on all 20 odd bases between armigers and knights both, I went ahead and played an event this week with Lucas and the Furix team, and so we played a couple of the missions out of Cthonia that we're going to cover next time since we're doing inductii this time. But I'm going to say that I really, really like the missions that came out of the Cthonia book. I've got a lot of learning to do with knights. I went ahead and took a Lancer, which I think is probably up there with attack bikes as far as one of the more terrible models in the game. No brutal and only 4 attacks space makes it pretty crap. And then the other 2 knights that I took for big knights were the Gallants, which is the double close combat weapon. So Ripper, Chainsword, and Fist. Again, as we talked about, sadly, with last time we talked was with David, he brought up the fact that there's no brutal in that list at all, and it's just so bad. They can't hold their own in combat. I was killing 3 or 4 times the amount of models with my explosions than I was in combat, and they're just so bad in combat. So a couple of the guys there, one of them played knights, and he recommended that I look into more shooty knights, and so I'm probably going to try to balance that a little better. But again, the problem becomes you have to take a minimum number of armigers with the list, and they're 200 points apiece, so it's definitely an interesting build to work around with, and I'm still playing with it. After that event, I spent the last evening today and a little bit of last night working on masking the Spartans and Typhons and Kratos so that I can get those done, and that's what I'm going to be finishing up during the podcast today so that I can start spraying blues next week and then get on to decals probably either this coming week or week after. And then I'd like to put a shout out to Duncan to send me some terrain so that I can start decaling that as well.
Yes, and I actually went to the post office this weekend, and I did not mail that because I suck as a person.
I'll just rub your face in it more. That's okay.
That's perfectly reasonable. The reason I didn't send it out this weekend is because it was in my wife's car, because my wife was up in Michigan. She was around Lake Mackinac this weekend, so yeah, that's why I didn't go out.
All right, well, so you can go out, you can go into hot.
Yeah. Before we throw hobby, I do want to point out something that you brought up that was relatively casual in nature. For those of you who remember when, I believe it was CK Studios used to do a Wednesday night hobby hangout, the Heresy Accountabilities Discord has a dedicated channel for hobby hangout. I don't know if we have any hard locked hours yet, but that's a great place to show up, poke in, and make sure that others can see you and you can be seen by them.
I was planning on running one last night, but I got stuck at the drive-in movie theater with the family till almost 1 o'clock in the morning. So Sorry.
No need to apologize. I actually was planning on running one this past Wednesday, but I actually was helping the wife pack for her trip, so I did not do so. I will hopefully be able to run one this coming Wednesday. We will see.
And if not,
I'd like to run one weekly, actually.
if not Wednesdays, because that's going to be kind of weird for some people, we could also do Sunday before we record.
We can, and actually I had one going before this, and it was joined by Cody and Michael, and I appreciate them showing up and letting me ask Cody some questions on Blood Angel ideas.
Well, why don't you go into that?
Oh, okay, so it's been, what, one episode since I was on last?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the interim, I have finished my Justarin with Thunderhammers that I was working on. I finished Abaddon that I was working on. Took both of those to an event up in Indiana, at the Battle Barn, along with Jack. I don't know if Jack covered that event last week, because I haven't had a chance to listen to last week's recording yet.
He did.
Okay, cool. Met a listener up there named Joseph. Shout out to Joseph. It was nice meeting him. Nice getting a game in with him and his Imperial Fists. I look forward to seeing him on here painting more in the hobby hangout where he has been, and seeing how his list goes and his fists become, because he's just now getting into painting. Beyond that, I have assembled 20 jump pack Mark V Blood Angels for assault squads. I've assembled a jump pack Praetor to go along with them. I've assembled 10 more of the Angel's Tears for them. I figured out what red I'm using for them all as a whole, and I have them all base coated. Now I have the reds down on everything, and I'm starting on the first squad's paint beyond red. I'm actually working on the shoulder pads, bolt pistols, and chain swords as I am saying this. And again, shout out to Cody for helping me with the idea for what I'm going to do for the Psychitors, which is the 5th company of the Blood Angels Legion during the Heresy. The guys led by Nasser Ahmet.
I didn't help at all. Not even a small bit.
You did suggest the black shoulder pads, and then Cody kind of concurred. And I will definitely say, no. Credit where credit's due. Thank you to both of you. I appreciate it. And I will say that's all I've done. And I will kick it over to Jack. Jack, what have you done?
Oh, I wanna interrupt as you talk about painting schemes. I want to applaud Jack for his latest uploads to our YouTube channel. He's been posting how he does like his yellow for his Imperial Fists, and I believe was that how you painted Samus, or was that Cabanda? That you ended up
Samus.
Yeah, Samus. Huge shout for the tutorials that he's been putting out. Those have been cool.
Thank you, sir. So hobby progress is that. And then I've been working on a, not a Thunder Chicken, a Stormbird. That's been my biggest thing, and finishing up Samus and getting him ready to be handed over to Duncan whenever I see him next so he can ship him off to Jamie. Outside of that, got nothing. Jamie, what have you been up to?
So, I today finished up the 10-man last squad that I've been working on for a little bit, that I've posted videos up on the YouTube channel when we were doing hobby progress. And I've taken pictures in the Discord and put them up. But that started working on detailing out more the first of the saber tanks. I've been doing a lot of 3D printing this weekend for bits and parts for people, including myself, running a couple test prints, trying to see if I've got the size down right. Then I spent a lot of time, to be honest with you, setting up stuff for Toys for Tots, confirming with people that are, for at least for the word bearers, who's painting it, which Brian Byers, and a lot of people here know on the show.
Yep.
He also did the Death Guard last year. He has agreed to graciously paint the entire army for us. White Scars, because I don't have as much of it here. I'm still working on it. I've had a couple people offer to help paint, which I'm very grateful for, but I'm not ready to send stuff out for that yet because I just don't have it all here, and I want to make sure I have the whole army cataloged and itemized before it goes out. So, other than that, that's pretty much it. A lot of stuff around the house. and saw some movies last night. So, did Dan go yet? Oh, Dan doesn't have any. That's right. So, Jacob, you didn't have any. Who else hasn't gone yet?
Cody, Mike, have either of you done anything lately?
Yeah, I've done a bunch of stuff. Cody, you want to go first? You got anything?
So I have started converting and assembling my militia using all of the different guard models that I can get a hold of. So from every era, every type, Catachans, Cadians, old RG models, Scions, and they're all going to be intermixed and then marked with banners or like armbands or sashes, so that no squad is going to be made up of one type. They're just going to be the survivor companies during the siege. And also, I have been plugging away with the Mad Lad Derek at Terrain for our event.
Nice, nice. Michael, what about you, brother?
I am up to 20 pyroclasts put together. I put together a Rhino and a Whirlwind, one Spartan, and then tonight, as we sit here, I'm working on chainswords for Salamanders and Inductii, so that I can start getting them painted up and start using them and start really getting at it, because I think Salamanders and Inductii are super good and mega dope, and I love them.
Nothing wrong with that. I think that about rounds out hobby progress for everybody. So,
I don't think we had any releases, so next week is going to be Leviathan. About the only thing that's coming out that might even be slightly heresy related is if you pre-order Leviathan through your friendly game store, you can get a neoprene mat. That's a good dice tray that has a Terminator head on it. Dominus Terminator. It's literally the only thing that's heresy related coming out for the next 3 weeks, since it's going to be a 3-week lead up to Leviathan. Go ahead, Jamie.
I was going to say paperback of one of the Siege of Terror books too.
Fear to Tread.
Oh, yeah.
Or, no, not Fear to Tread. The End of the Death.
Yeah.
Speaking of End of the Death, we still do not have a publication date for the second half of that yet.
Yes, we do.
Do we?
So someone noticed that Amazon got updated and it says November 7th.
Really?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm on the Black Library Nutters Facebook page, and apparently someone did some finagling and found out that there is a page that exists for the End of the Death Part 2, and it says a publication date of November 7th.
Well, isn't that nice?
Loosely, unofficially.
Right, and that's going to be the physical copy, not the fancy copy or the audio book. So therefore, we'll probably get it in October?
August.
Or September?
Usually, isn't there like a 2 to 3 month?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe if in November, like August, September.
So not that far off.
Nice.
Then we're going to have to do a book club on it, starting from the beginning.
Ooh. I actually really look forward to that, because I have, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you feel about it, I have gone through every single novel in the series.
I skipped the not main books. Because
I have a reading list that I gave to Dan a while back. That is, you can read these or you can skip them, and there's a lot of skipping in there you can do.
I meant the Siege.
Oh, I've read all of the Siege at this point.
Yeah, I skipped the little books.
I don't really blame you on that, to be honest.
Yeah. But that's it for Heresy releases.
Right.
Excellent. I believe we had some EO updates that we were hoping to run.
Yeah. Warzone Houston's coming up. If you're planning to go to that event, there's going to be some major updates to the website for the Heresy tab in the next week or so, including a full schedule, full release of events. Some potential missions will get shown off and some other stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff coming if you're going to go to that event.
And when is that again?
It'll be in September. It's the third weekend in September.
We have a new hotel. It's a hotel that does suites. It's pretty nice. Extremely reasonable room rates, which I dig. Very close to the venue. We're at the same venue. We're at the Sam Houston racetrack in Texas. We've changed the overarching way we're doing the entire campaign, and had a lot of feedback. People who played in previous years and talked to a lot of different EOs who run events around the country, and talked about what works, what doesn't work. So we're trying stuff out, and we're really hoping we're going to be able to put on an excellent event for everyone.
Yeah, starting to gather prize support at the same time. The raffle army this year is going to be 3,000 points of Blood Angels. If it goes over $1,000 for the charity, we'll be throwing in a Sanguinius as well.
Cody, do you have any other notes to make as we go?
So we run one of what I think is the premier apocalypse games for Heresy. We always have extremely strange things that happen. You come and you play, and there are multiple Titan maniples on each side. It's basically bring everything you can and just have a huge fun game. This year we're going to do it a little bit different structurally based on something we did at Shaft a few years ago. So I hope everyone's going to really enjoy that. And at the same time, if you don't want to play in the APOC game, we're going to have frontline missions and ZM missions that are going to be affecting the overreaching campaign. We've revamped the scoring system, and we've taken a little bit of a note from how LVO ran their campaign, in that the primary mission scores you victory points for the game, but your secondaries, which you get to choose, score campaign points for your side. And there's all of the missions from the book. Then there is going to be a specific one for your faction based on whether you're loyalist or traitor. There's going to be a secret one for the mission based on whether you're the attacker or defender. And then there's going to be a few other ones that are going to be thrown in for narrative reasons.
That's super cool to hear. I know that some of those game formats are not for everybody. I've been pretty outspoken how like team games on Apocalypse aren't always for me, but I do really applaud EOs in the Heresy community for continuing to offer them as long as they continue to get support. That's really cool.
And we try not to, say if you don't do this, you can't do anything. All of the missions that go on beside that can interact with the APOC game in that, like, some of them you're holding guns that get to shoot into the game. So even if you're playing a little ZM game, if you hold the gun, you can drop a pie plate on the APOC game. Or you're also still scoring points for your side. So the loyalist or traitor side is still scoring points based on these Friday games.
Yeah, that tie-in from Shaft will be amazing. If APOC is not your jam and it's not something that you really want to come to, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff for you to do, and you're going to have a whole lot of agency as far as the game goes with some of those ZM games and some of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of good stuff that you can still do for your team. There's a lot of fun that you can still have. I mean, it's a really good way to start an event off with something that people generally don't like to do anyway. A lot of people just don't like to play APOC, and that's okay. This gives you something to do with your Friday. And Warzone's always been a 3-day event. It's always going to be a 3-day event, and APOC is always going to be on Friday. Come out, join in. There's going to be the ZM mission set up. It's going to be great.
APOC has long been my baby. Like, I love the format. I've written my own legacy format for it, which can be overlaid over different game systems as well. But try to stress that this is just a big fun game where everybody gets to play with their toys, and don't take it seriously. Your stuff's going to die, and it's going to come back, and it's going to die again, and everything explodes, and everything chain reacts, and it's just there to see how ridiculous you can possibly make a game.
Well, it's also a place where you bring out your Primarchs, you do that kind of fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You do your big Death Ball Spartan shenanigans.
Sounds like fun.
So, in the core games, we're going to be playing at 3,000 points, and I believe is it 1,250 for the ZM games, Michael?
1,500 for the ZM games.
1,500 for the ZM games.
Are you going to be using the ZM rules out of the Cthonia book?
Yes.
Yes. The ZM rules out of Cthonia are good. If you're an EO and you're wondering if they're worth doing, they 100% are, and you should do it and enjoy it because they're good.
We are going to be setting a cutoff date, I believe, of September 1st for new stuff coming out. Your stuff isn't out by September 1st. It won't be available. You need to, if you sign up, lists to Michael, and if you sign up, what's the date, Michael?
The cutoff for signups, so you need to send your lists before September 1st. And then if you buy a ticket on September 2nd, within 3 days you need to have your list sent in so that we can go ahead and start looking through them. We do a real cursory list check every year.
Well, we're also going to have TO generals that are going to be helping with pairings.
Yeah,
In that, if you bring, a turbo kicker list, you're going to be put up against other people who brought turbo kicker lists. But if you brought, the ultra fluffy 200 salamander tac marines, we're not going to put you up against the guy who's playing, the super crunchy Fury of the Ancients list.
This is very true. A lot of it is prep work for the generals, so we can kind of hand them a list of, hey, this is what's here. Be mindful. This is what you're going to use where, blah blah blah.
I'm glad you've taken that feedback into account. I know it was something I'd heard from a couple other people locally. Was like they liked going to Warzone Houston, but it seemed kind of like for less extroverted players, they didn't seem to get what they thought they were getting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happened over the last couple of years. It's kind of been that way, and it's an ever evolving, ever growing, ever changing event, just like all others are.
Do you have anything that is not permitted? For example, like Fury of the Ancients, or
Primarchs.
Okay.
No Primarchs in the frontline missions.
And no Primarchs in ZM.
The APOC game, bring all of them. Bring multiples of them. It'll be fun.
We'll probably do a name character cutoff, name character call out date, probably sometime around September 1st as well. If I had to take a hard guess at it, that's not something that we've talked about.
We have a couple of guys, Seth and Jack, that have done yeoman's work for a lot of the stuff going forward, or leading up to this. Mission design, testing. These guys are, and I do not want them to feel like they are being forgotten with other people talking about this. Seth ran the Alamo GT, the Heresy at the Alamo GT, and I, unfortunately, because of work, didn't get to go to that, but everybody that I talked to that went to it said it was a blast. So that's really good that we got to play test some of the stuff that we're going to be trying out in a live event setting.
Yep. We have play days up here in Houston. I know a lot of the EOs are the local guys that run those play days. They're factoring in and helping us with Warzone Prep 2, which is really nice. But Seth
John
and
Rich.
Jack, they do a great job.
We got John Rich down here who's been helping write playtest missions, and again, that guy is a hobby hero. Amazing
Absolutely.
painter, great at writing fun, fluffy, asymmetrical missions. So I really look forward to getting a lot of people playing these and having fun with them.
So people should not expect to have just missions right out of the book. They'll expect to have missions that require
No, you
extra
won't have
fun.
missions out of the book.
Yes.
Awesome.
The only mission you may have, there's only 1 or 2 missions out of Cthonia that are worth running carte blanche, and they're ZM missions. And we just got Cthonia, so no one's even talking about running Cthonia missions yet.
I was referring to the main book.
No,
Oh,
we
yeah.
don't have any of the main book missions
Yeah,
in our packet.
No, they're all lame.
Nice.
Sorry, Games Workshop.
And again, it's very important to point out that you play these missions. The primary mission will score you points towards the game, but your secondaries don't affect your victory of the game. They affect your campaign points, your sides points for the whole of the weekend.
Which are super mondo mega important.
There's 3 battle zones that are going to be taking place. There's primary place that's being attacked, which is Port Charlotte. There's the Rogue Moon Ulan Huda, and then there's the Harvest Moon Ruby's Harvest that are all being fought over, and whoever holds each point will be the defender, and the other side will be the attacker in that zone, which will affect setup and mission objectives. And that can flop from round to round based on who holds it.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It's going to be a heck of a show.
I look forward to getting all my stuff done for it. That's why I'm working on these tanks and knights.
John, I look forward to seeing you there, you hobby champion.
I wouldn't be a champion if I didn't have someone to achieve to, or something to achieve to. So
I'll give you a
you and
goal.
Cody run the best events, so that's why I strive for.
I appreciate that a lot.
Struggle to live up to that.
No struggling, just get my 3D printing done.
Sir.
There's the tie-in.
Right. Well, thank you guys for coming and talking about it. Do you have anything else you'd like to bring up about the event or anything else going on?
No, not really. I've got stuff to say about Cthonia, but I can shelve that. The event's going to be great. You should buy a ticket. The hotel deal's dope. It's the best hotel deal we have literally ever had. It's an amazing venue. The Sam Houston Race Park puts on a wonderful show. It's a wonderful venue for the Heresy players in particular. We're literally alone and sequestered from everybody else by like a good 100 feet. Yeah, we get our
And it's
own
also
room.
it's air-conned too. So before anyone's like, "Oh, Texas in the summer," it has awesome AC.
Mhm.
Wait, there's places in the South that don't have air conditioning, like
Well, you-
hotel-wise.
Well, yeah, but you would this is at a racetrack, and this is in a back room of a racetrack. So some people
Okay.
think, "Oh, it's gonna be hot," but it's not. It was actually pretty nippy one year.
Yeah, so anytime somebody's like, "Oh wow, you guys are in the back room of the back room," yeah, we've got our own bar service, we've got our own bathroom, we've got our own air conditioners, we've got our own doors. We could shut that room off completely apart from the rest of the event, and it would never suffer. You could still drink to your heart's content and still play as many games as you want, and you'd never have to see any of the other tournament players out there sweating. It's great.
Agreed.
Yep.
I have
All right.
I have solidly fought to keep that room every year, like almost fist fight style. I will never give that room up. My boys will always have the best room. Period.
Good to know.
Sorry, everybody else.
Super cool. I hope you have a great turnout for it. It sounds like a killer event.
Now we just need to get some more of you guys to come up for it.
We'll have to see if we can get the chance sometime. Thank you again for coming on and giving us the rundown. With that behind us, do we want to go ahead and start stepping into the first of our Siege of Cthonia content?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Excellent. So we have chosen to kick off our Siege of Cthonia content. We've taken about a week to digest the publication at this point. We're going to kick off with the Legion's Inductii. We believe that these are the most broadly applicable units that most folks are going to be interested in, and likewise, this gives us a little more time to sink our teeth into some of the Legion-specific changes with regard to Sons of Horus and Imperial Fist's unique choices, the Decurions, as well as the campaign setting. But with the Legion's Inductii, there's a few things to keep in mind. These are presented as changes to base units, which is to say they will say this is a tactical squad, but you X instead of Y and A instead of B, for example. Likewise, it's important to know that any unit that includes models with the Inductii unit subtype cannot be joined by any other models or have other models assigned to it. So your Inductii are not important enough to your Legion to have a Primus Medicae or even a regular Apothecary assigned to them. Tech Marines can't join them. Your Praetor thinks that he is below them. That's not in the cards. Likewise, no model in a unit that includes models with the Inductii can exchange their power armor for Artificer armor. No surprise, if you're not important enough to have a Tech Marine join you, you will not be important enough to be assigned Artificer armor. Finally, your Inductii are always support squads. So this means that Inductii cannot make up your compulsory troop choice in any list or right. There are some fun things then that you can do as a result by taking another Rite of War that gives you a troop swap and then using these as your actual scoring choices. But again, it is still important to underscore and to highlight that they can't be compulsory troops, you can't assign models to them, you can't attach models to them, and you cannot buy Artificer armor. All of that having been said, we're going to try to do these kind of quick and dirty in Legion order. We want to kick off with the Dark Angels?
Sure.
Before we jump into the Dark Angels, I just had a thought because One of the things I think they missed out on that would have been fluffy and fun and not necessarily game breaking or anything would have been a rite of war that specifically. I just think there's an opportunity there that could have been fun for.
I think in the absence of us not having complete rules for Shattered Legions or Black Shields, that it's, while I appreciate where you're coming from, I think that without us having those army lists, getting a transformative inductii army list would have been extremely difficult to see, maybe. I don't want to say that that's frustrating, because obviously more ways to play is something I think we're broadly in support of or in pursuit of. But to see new ways before the old ways are fleshed out, I could see that chafing some folks. Likewise, if you and your playgroup want to start playtesting that, want to start implementing rules like that, we would be more than happy, listeners, to be able to hear back from you about how the results of that went. That having been said, Jamie, do you want to pick us up for the Dark Angels?
Sure. So I guess with each one of these, we need to say which units that these would replace. Going through, and so anyways, I'll start them off. Dark Angels. The Legion Inductii, they replaced Dark Angel tactical squads, and basically all models in the unit have to be modified to Dark Angels Legion Inductii template, or modified to the template must replace the. You lose basically access to the hexagrammaton subunit abilities for the Dark Angels, which, some of those can be very powerful depending on which wing you're playing. And then also the big change for the Inductii, why you would actually want them, because you lose access to the hexagrammaton and you also lose access to Fury of the Legion special rule, is they get Volkite chargers for free. So like the same cost as a bolt for like just the inbuilt they get Volkite chargers for free. And Volkite chargers, the range on them's 15 inches, it's strength 5, AP 5, and it's got Deflagrate, which
it's Assault 2 and Deflagrate.
Yeah. So basically you shoot, resolve your shoots, or you're shooting the wounds that are unsaved, you immediately get to roll the same number of shots again on the squad that you're shooting on. So that's kind of cool. They're decent weapons, but I don't know. With the limitations, they lose access to the hexagrammaton and the Fury of the Legion. I don't know if that balances out, but it's basically a free upgrade for that squad.
So I can talk to this pretty. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, in front of my militia, the like a week and a half after the militia PDF drops, y'all get the anti-militia unit.
Well, yeah, sure.
I did want to float it out there as I ran the numbers on this because I had a buddy who, in true fluffy Space Wolf fashion, saw this and immediately got incensed at the Dark Angels getting anything for any reason ever. And I was like, okay, let's run the numbers. Let's take 10 tactical Marines and put them at 12 inches and let them sit still and triple tap because of Fury. Let's give them the Storm Wing or Iron Wing, is it, that gives them +1 to hit with bolt weapons?
Yep.
And then let's stack those up against Inductii. And truth be told, the Bolter guys actually slightly overperformed. Now, obviously, there's some stipulations or caveats there, but even if we took the Dark Angels kind of on the other end, which is to say, take Despoilers or Assault Marines and take the Hexagrammaton that gives you +1 to hit with bladed implements, those, I think, would then shake out better than these guys in close combat. So it's even though, I totally get the shock value on paper, when you consider that Dark Angels seem to have been built and balanced on the fact that their tactical squads will get +1 to hit with bolt weapons, these guys aren't horrifically out of line.
They're not. Compared to some of the other ones, there are definitely better ones, but there are definitely worse ones. I'd say it's kind of middle of the pack. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree. These are completely playable without immediately being a blowout option in either direction.
Right. I mean, like, I actually have a Mark 6 squad that I'm going to make just one of these squads for my Dark Angel army, just because I think they're kind of cool. The fluff's kind of cool for them. But they're, again, I mean, they're kind of middle of the road. They're not really super good. They're not super bad. So, I mean.
Yep. Next up, we've got the Emperor's Children. Did anybody deep dive on these, or am I running with them?
I think all of the rest of us were kind of afraid to touch them.
Yeah, that's okay. I will do my very best here. The Emperor's Children inductii are despoiler squads who can, at 5 points a model, replace their chainsword with a Charnabal weapon. Likewise, they get Perfection Embodied, which says they are considered to have lead 10 during the shooting phase, including pinning checks, but not for psychic tests. If you would suffer a draw in close combat, you lose. Kind of unimpressed here. I apologize, you give up Heart of the Legion for that Perfection Embodied rule. I'm not super impressed with the spoilers, and I don't think these guys bring enough to the table to get me excited. I may have felt differently if the Charnabal weapons were like 1 or 2 points a model, as if they were like bayonets or chain bayonets. But I may be out of line there, and they may be significantly better than that. I just don't know that these things are going to get me turned on to despoilers. But hey, that's me. That gets us, unless somebody has a strong opinion otherwise, segueing nicely into the Iron Warriors. I think I've got a guy here who knows how to talk about those.
Just maybe.
So, it's a tactical squad. They're an inductii tactical squad. You get no real modifications of anything except that you lose the Heart of the Legion, so you're not going to have the chance to have Feel No Pain when you're a objective, and instead you get Soul of Iron. First off, these guys automatically pass any pinning tests they're required to take. So for that fact, they're great. But their drawback is if during your shooting phase they are within range of anything, they have to shoot at it. Doesn't matter what it is, they have to shoot, and they have to shoot the closest enemy unit possible. If you have 2 of them that are within equal distance, you can pick, but you have to shoot every single turn if something's in range, and you have to shoot at the closest enemy model.
So I like these if you wanted to take Iron Fire, which gives you those troop choice, what is it, Archidors, Medusas, and Basilisks.
Yep.
I like these in that list, even just because it gives you scoring choices that are a little bit more challenging to dislodge. But otherwise, I'd say that they are maybe slightly behind the Dark Angel unit we referred to earlier. They are playable, but I don't know if I would give them a better mark than that. That being said, I know both Iron Warrior players here in Indiana are super gung-ho on any time they will be taking more than 2 troop choices. Further troop choices are going to be inductee.
I don't blame them. The absolute immunity to pinning, this edition is crazy.
Yeah,
and
that's a big deal.
Personally,
That's a big
I would,
deal.
for the Iron Warriors, I would run them as a 20-man block, and I would just walk that forward.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't really attach anything to it, but I'd just walk them forward and machine gun hoe, as it were.
Lean on the trigger till it goes click.
Pretty much.
Spray and pray.
That takes us then to White Scars. Did we have somebody who wanted to take those and run with them, or is that on me again?
Ned's not here, so I would say go ahead and have at it.
In Ned's honor, White Scars inductee are despoiler squads. They cannot have their power weapon upgraded to a power glaive. They are not important enough to warrant that. And then they replace Heart of the Legion with Proof of Valor. Proof of Valor. When a model with this special rule suffers an unfazed wound during the fight subphase, When at least one or more enemy units are majority weapon skill 5+, it can make Proof of Valor. Roll a d6 for each unsaved wound. On a 5-up, it is discounted. It is a damage mitigation roll, and you can actually seemingly use this to save against instant death as a trade-off that it's only in close combat. So it's kind of a close combat shrouded in some way. If one or more wounds is discounted and the unit that benefited from it has not been entirely removed as casualties or forced to fall back, then at the end of the fight phase, that unit proves their valor. At the end of the battle, if any units have proved their valor, that player scores 1 additional victory point. So it's important to note that Proof of Valor is only good for 1 victory point in your entire game. That being
I was
said,
just about to point that out.
this is right on the edge of making Despoilers worth considering for me. You do lose Heart of the Legion, but if you are looking for an excuse to shove a unit of Despoilers into close combat, and even if they die, you've got a good chance of shaking it out, that's alright. The problem is that you have to get hit by a weapon skill 5 unit that does not obliterate you, and that does cause enough volume of wounds that you can save at least 1 to Proof of Valor. Could be challenging, but again, if that was something you were looking to consider, certainly in the cards.
I actually really like the unit concept, and I could definitely see it being really fun in a Magyar Mason list.
Oh yeah, Magyar. That could be a great pickup.
Yeah.
Pushing forward, we've got the Space Wolves. Do we have any experts there with us?
I'm not an expert, but I can take it if you want me to.
If you'd like, it's all yours.
All right, so the Space Wolf unit replaces the spoiler squads. Basically, you lose. If I read it correctly, you lose the sergeant from the squad and get just an additional normal legionary.
Yep,
That's correct.
And then since they're spoilers, they come with double pistols. So you end up dropping a pistol for combat?
They are pistol and chainsword, so you can give up
chainsword.
your 1 pistol for the combat shield. And I think that's a big loss there, that you would trade your shooting and dual armed to get a 6-up invuln. I'm sorry, did combat shields go to 5-up? Are breachers 4-up?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, these are 6-up invulnerable save.
Well, all right then.
And then you can also replace the chainsword for a point with a chain axe. And
Now, that I think is an upgrade. Absolutely.
Of course you do, Duncan.
yeah.
Y'all got any
Anyways.
more of them chain axes?
They replace Heart of the Legion with the Headstrong rule, and the Headstrong rule is when declaring a charge for a unit composed entirely of models with this special rule, the controlling player can declare it to be a headstrong charge. If they do so, when rolling to determine the charge distance, add 2 to the result, and that charge is disordered. This does not allow units to charge a total distance of more than 12 inches.
So, I don't know what your take is on these guys. I think my biggest take on these guys is that they are swimming upstream because you lose your sergeant as a bonus power weapon outlet. And though I think chain axes are good, you're further swimming upstream against the fact that Space Wolves already have line-compliant, compulsory available core choices.
Well, it's
And
not just the power weapon from the sergeant you're losing, you also lose the leadership buff, and
Yep.
the pinning game,
Yep.
you want that.
Yep. And so it's really hard to find the value in these unless you're maybe more explicitly playing like Pale Hunters, and you can outflank them to kind of dodge the worst drawback of losing that leadership buff. But even then, I definitely see these as more of a loser, and I won't be surprised to see no Space Wolf player ever field them.
What does disordered charge do?
You don't
This-
get a bonus attack or any of your other charge bonuses when you charge.
Yep.
So
Okay.
if you were to drop that pistol for that shield, these guys running into combat with a disordered charge would have 1 attack a pop.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
you don't have to do the disorder charge. It says you may do the disorder charge.
okay.
Yes, you may when you do that to get 2 extra inches.
Yep.
I don't see the value in giving them an invulnerable save at all. If
I
you
didn't say
take them, no. I don't know. I love chain axes and I love close combat, but I do not see these guys being all that honestly worth it at this point.
Yep.
That's okay. Pulls us along into Imperial Fists. I believe, did somebody have those spoken for?
I think
I
Jack
do.
is our local Imperial Fist expert.
By no
Yeah,
means
he
an
seems a
expert.
little yellow.
But basically, as a tactical squad, you can do 10 to 20 members. For every 10 members, you can replace one bolter with a heavy bolter or autocannon, and it gains the supporting fire special rule. Which, if you declare supporting fire, then you gain pinning from your shooting.
The heavy weapon gains pinning.
The heavy weapon gains pinning. Sorry. I don't hate it, but I'm hard pressed to find a good use for it.
I think it's important to highlight the fact that your inductii innately give up Heart of the Legion for supporting fire, and supporting fire doesn't do anything if you don't spend the extra 10 to 15 points per 10 models to bring either a heavy bolter or an autocannon. If you are playing a super static list where you can get away with it, I'm sure we will see a lot of Imperial Fists take this. But knowing that they have an abundance of troop swaps, I would be very surprised if we see this instead of... Well, okay, I say that. If you were taking, like, Sigismund and doing a Templar Assault list, taking some of these guys as non-compulsory troops, I could totally see it.
I think the problem I have with these is the same problem we'll have when we talk about the Ultramarines, so it's a little bit of crossover. In 2.0, you want units to do the thing, and they have to do thing very well. And if you're just giving 2 guns to a unit, they don't do anything well. They do 2 things half, and you want a whole one thing.
100%. I completely agree with that. You want to either be on the move and get to your point and then bunker up, or you want to be bunkered up on the point and often having a luxury weapon for anybody who lived through, like, 5th edition Space Marines, where it's like, oh, cool, I bought this 10-man tactical squad. I can take, like, 1 melt-a-gun and 1 missile launcher, and now what do I do with these? Because I can either shoot that special weapon at something important and give up all my really expensive bolters, or I can shoot my bolters and I can overkill somebody because I brought these really expensive special weapons.
The only thing I can really see on these guys being useful, realistically, is sticking an autocannon in them and stick them on a backfield objective because they don't lose their line, and then using that to occasionally try to pin something and just pray.
You only get the pinning once per game. I actually think the autocannon's a trap here. I think the heavy bolter is significantly better because the Imperial Fists rule gives you +1 to hit, which means that even if you are on the move, you should land 1 heavy bolter hit at minimum per turn. I think it breaks down to basically 2 hits over 3 turns, assuming you're moving it. And the heavy bolter, I think, to John's point, won't bait you in to hoping that the autocannon is going to do something against, like, a Rhino or Sakaran. If you end up with... Yeah, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, before too far, the autocannon does give you the bonus, too, with their Legion rule. So it's bolters and auto weapons.
Yeah, but the autocannon's only 2 shots, yeah?
Yep. I was about to say, yeah, you've got the number of shots, so you're hoping with your plus... Yeah, I see that. It's not as good, and at that point, why aren't you just taking a support squad of something else in a Rhino or something else that can... It is a troop's choice, so...
Yeah, take a Castellan and, like, an Assault Cannon heavy support squad if you think about taking the autocannon. I think that's a much easier play unless you are drastically compromised on heavy support and HQ choices.
Yep.
Then I must have utterly misread that because I was under the impression that they could do that shooting anytime, and now I see that the once per battle. So yeah.
Yep. top tip. Keep aware that is once per battle. Other people may have missed that.
Never mind.
All right. That brings us then to Night Lords. Did we have somebody bone up on these guys?
I did.
Hey, there you go, sir.
All right, so this is one of the units in the inductii group that actually has a decent amount of changes to it. So there's a decent amount going on. So it's a despoiler squad. There's a characteristic profile change, which is the first one we've seen of these, I think, so far.
Space Wolves kind of had one, but this is more explicitly stated.
Yeah. So basically, the sergeant goes to a leadership characteristic of 7, and then the next big change is in their war gear. They lose chains. They have to replace their chain swords with they're called killer's blades. And killer's blades are strength as user, melee, breaching 6+, and then special rules. All models in this unit modified by the Night Lords. Blah blah blah. Replace Heart of the Legion special rule with Unscrupulous Murder special rule, and this is kind of an involved rule, but basically, if the sergeant gets involved in a challenge, okay, at the start of initiative step 10, you can select up to 2 other models from the same unit and roll a d6 for each model selected. On a 2+, that model resolves its attacks during that step. These attacks can only be allocated to the enemy model involved in the challenge. On a 1, that model must resolve its attacks during this step against their own unit. So if they do so, these attacks can only be allocated to the Legion Despoiler Sergeant model from their own unit, and any wounds inflicted do not count towards assault results. If other models involved in the challenge is destroyed by these attacks, the challenge is no longer considered to be ongoing, and the remaining model can fight normally when their initiative step is reached. So basically, it's kind of like taking that Night Lord's talent for murder rule, where they love ganging up on stuff and fighting dirty, very dirty. And so, like, basically in a challenge, you're getting a potential for like 2 extra models to join in on the challenge. But if they fail their initiative roll for the challenge attack, they attack their own sergeant.
Definitely not prison gangers. I don't know what you're talking about.
No shivs involved at all.
Absolutely none. No weaponized toothbrushes here.
No.
I
don't know, man.
I get that this is a powerful rule, but this kind of feels like my point about Games Workshop needs to stop making chaos the balancing mechanic to different things. If you want to let 2 dudes get called up by Sarge to jump the other guy, just let them jump the other guy. If you want something to have a chance of blowing back on the unit, make it so their hit rolls of 1 hit Sarge instead. Like, do it that way instead of like, oh boy, now I gotta like roll dice to figure out how I get to roll my dice, and then all told though,
I mean, it's very fluffy. I mean,
it's super fluffy,
but it's just overly complicated.
Yeah, and given these are despoiler squads, I don't immediately see these hitting play. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Night Lord players are like chomping at the bit to run this. I just don't anticipate it.
No.
So, I've built like 2 test lists for Night Lords since this dropped, and both of them include these guys everywhere. I just think they're fun. I think they're insane, and they really, really fit the murderers aspect for Night Lords for me.
Yeah,
I like them.
And my read could be super wrong. People could be so in on the fluff.
I mean, they are definitely super fluffy for the army, just with like everything else that's going on with like their special rules and stuff, and like the fact that, you know, they're inductees, so they're going to be like literally they're just busting people out of prison at that point later on in the war, whatever they can get, and basically making them Space Marines. So
I was going to say, Dan, we've missed you.
I think that's one of the points that I want to make, right? You know, The fluff is that they're not necessarily going to be the best guys because they're little
Yeah.
trained. But one of the things that really sticks out in reading all of these is that every one of them, while it's a minor tweak to the rules, they all fit the Legion so well. I think they did a really good job in that part of it and making them all fit like this is how this unit or this Legion would make this unit fit in, and it feels fluffy, for that Legion, if that
Well, I
makes
mean,
sense.
yeah, I mean, like,
But
example, the Dark Angels, they busted in the vault, and they're like, okay, we got a ton of Volkite weapons, have at it with the Volkites. And then, like, with the Night Lords, they're definitely, you can see these are, like, convicts and prisoners. They're like, here, you're a Space Marine now, go kill these people, and here's a knife, and go shiv them,
And like Fists and Ultramarines are kind of working towards the next level of tactical squads where they have the extra weapons in there, right? Which, they would both be working towards that kind of discipline. I like that part of it, no matter what, where they fit power wise in the rules. I think they did a really good job of that. And I think you will see, because we are heresy players, that some of these units, while they may not be best choice to take for the points or in an army, that people will bring them because they want to bring them.
They're fluffy.
To be fluffy and to even as an EO, and I'm not saying all Adepticon things should be this way or anything crazy, but I could even see, let's run a late heresy event and you have to bring an inductii for your army you bring in, right? Squad or two squads, just to make it be that whole event to where everyone's playing new in the heresy and off in some battle where they're just throwing bodies at it, right? That's the kind of stuff that I like these rules for, no matter how you play them out. And I think that where they fit in the game still is important, right? But I think that that part of it is, we shouldn't forget, I guess.
Tommy, it's a very valid point. I mean, each of these is not designed to be a new be-all, end-all, break-the-game unit. They're designed to be fun and fluffy. And honestly, they are. This one especially so.
For sure.
It's just... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I kind of wish everyone had almost options to get into everyone else's. So that way you could say, like, because their inductee pulled from wherever, you could see, like, some of these traits coming through for everybody else.
Like a trait chart, almost like a create a character type deal where you're pulling. Yeah, I get it. That would be kind of cool.
Marines saying like, hey, okay, we're developing a codex, but at the same time, this is, 3 miles from Berlin. We need all the things. So okay, we made a despoiler squad, or we're giving out more rad weapons, or something like that. I could see more stuff coming out like that. To me, these seem like they overly loved some of them, and then some of them they're just like, we need something to come up with that fits with the fluff, admittedly, but still, we need something. You get a little bit. Because if you look at the Night Lords one, that is the longest by almost double.
Yeah, it's very involved compared to like the Dark Angels one is, I think, maybe the shortest one there.
Yeah.
But like the Death Guard one's pretty involved too, I think. Too.
Yeah.
But
if we want to jump into one that segues into, we just got to come up with something that maybe kind of fits the fluff, but we can jump into the Blood Angels one next.
Which is perfect because that's the next one up.
Yep.
Exactly. So I can take that one because Blood Angels is the spoiler squads. They get rid of the Spite of the Legion special rule and replace it with the Revenant Legion special rule. So Revenant Legion means they cannot make sweeping advances if a unit that includes models with a special rule wins a combat and all enemies that it was locked in combat with either fall back or are removed as casualties, then all models in that unit gain the Fear special rule until the end of the turn. Not much there, to be honest, right? They happen to win a combat, which they don't have the sergeant or any of the other special things that are going to get them a chance to win the combat. They can't sweeping advance, but if a unit falls away or they destroy them, they get Fear the rest of the game.
Yep. And honestly, based on the stuff that's readable about the Revenant Legion, which is the Blood Angels before they found Sanguinius. It really kind of fits. It's fluffy again. It's different. Personally, I like it. And as a guy who's building a Blood Angels army again, I'm not going to use them, but it's fluffy. I wish it had been not on a Despoiler squad, and I wish it had been on a like a jump squad. I think that would have made me personally happier, but meh, it is what it is for that.
And that's fair. If they could pull an assault squad and do it with it, it'd be...
Yeah, so that's that. Iron Hands is up next. Did anybody run those?
No, but I can take them.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, John.
Yeah, so the Iron Hands are a tactical squad upgrade. No characteristics, no unit comp. All models in the unit modified by Iron Hands Legion Inductii template gain heavy and inductii subtypes. So you're getting that fancy reroll from all the blast weapons. The Legion Sergeant can take a Phosphex bomb, a single Phosphex bomb for 10 points, which is actually really good. Special rules. They replace Fear the Ancient with Forbidden Augmetics, which says at the start of the controlling player's turn, before beginning the movement phase, roll 1 dice for each unit that includes 1 or more of these models. On a roll of 5+, all models in that unit gain +1 weapon skill, +1 ballistic skill until the end of that player's turn. However, on a roll of 1 or 2, they suffer D3 wounds with an AP value of dash, allocated by the owner. The Phosphex bomb is really nice. Heavy is nice. On a 2+, on a 3-up, it's kind of okay, because the things that are going to be destroying you are going to be the Wrens and things like that on blasts. They're fluffy as all hell. Because you could see this as like a Keys of Hell unit, where it's something that's, we're pulling the Dark Age stuff out of the vault. Here you go, boys. Don't worry about those tentacles snaking into your brain. We just need to get you on the field. So, I mean, for my Iron Hands, I would probably run them.
I do wish that they would have just said +1 weapon skill, +1 ballistic skill, take...
-1 movement.
I really would have just settled for take 1 armor save at the beginning of each game turn.
Yeah, because it's the D that hurts.
You have to, a third of the time, take D3 wounds. So if you just, average that out and just make it +1 weapon skill, +1 ballistic skill... And, if you're going to give them +1 weapons and +1 ballistics every turn, yeah, you probably do need to slow them down to 6 inches, and that'll make the Phosphex bomb more of a risk-reward on the 10-point expense. But yeah, if you would have given them that would have been enough, especially with them losing Fury. But as it is, big fan for all those people who find them fun and fluffy. Won't be surprised for anybody who's like, I just don't want to take the time to roll the dice.
Yeah, it's going to be so much dice rolling for that unit. And it's every unit. It's not just one unit. It's like, I could see if it was like a roll of dice at the beginning of your turn for everybody in your army, they all turn off like robots or whatnot. But the fact that it's every unit rolls a dice, and then you consult the thing, and then you do this.
Yeah, it's old school Dark Eldar combat drugs, where you gotta roll for each drug, and then you gotta, nail down what unit is affected by what, and who's in what's transport, and what units, what characters joined what. Yeah,
Yep.
It's a lot. It's frustrating, but is what it is. Duncan, if you would do us the honor.
I certainly shall. So, the world leaders inductii. They're Despoiler squads, which means you're already getting a free chain axe. Yay! You replace Heart of the Legion with Ravening Madmen. And for those who do not recall Ravening Madmen, it is not the greatest rule ever. You are going to gain... I'm trying to remember what it is. Hold on. Actually, I have to look it up, because if I don't, I'm going to be an idiot. Okay, so this is great for going up against Solar Ox or Cults or Militia or probably Mechanicum even. Anyone who swings at you in close combat thinks you have weapon skill of 3, no matter what your actual weapon skill is. But they are at -1 strength when swinging at you. So you're easier to hit, but you're harder to wound.
Yeah, it's a shame that they give up Heart of the Legion for that, and you can't attach an Apothecary, because altering instant death thresholds is a big deal in that specific instance.
Yeah. Do I like them? Man, that's really hard to say yes or no on that. I think it's kind of telling that Galen Serlak still has his inductii rule that he does to guys, and I think his is actually better.
Makes reasonable sense that you would get a slightly better version of a rule for paying a character tax.
It does. I don't think these guys are that great. Yes, the only other place we see the Ravening Madman rule is on the Red Butchers, but I don't think Red Butchers are actually worth it this edition. I have them. I have a unit of them, and I like playing them. But I don't think they're honestly that great. This rule kind of, for me personally, makes me go, puts them in the same category of, yes, it's a unit that exists, and I have despoilers who have chain axes, so I could run them as that if I wanted to, but I don't really see a point.
Yeah, very fair point. John, do you want to run us through the Ultramarines then?
Sure, I think we'll take everybody because we are a fairly Ultramarine centric cast, but the Ultramarine.
Oh, that's right. There's you, and there's Jack, and there's Dan, and
yeah, we got a few Ultramarine players here, but overall, it's a 10-man tactical squad. You can't take any extra men. You get the ability for every 5 men in the unit to take a flamer at +5, a plasma gun at +10, or a melt-a-gun at +15. Those points are awful high for what I said earlier, where you're kind of not doing one job very well because you're wasting those 8 other bolt guns in the unit. And then for special rules, you replace Fury of the Legion with Inexorable, and Inexorable's out of the Astartes book. You ignore modifiers for leadership tests when making morale checks or pinning tests, except those caused by fear or corrupted and anathema subtypes.
So you ignore shell shock and night fighting, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, does that also mean they're going to?
I think tactically the only way I could see using these guys is in like a drop pod assault or something where you can get those guns into range. But then at that point, why aren't you just taking special weapon squads? I don't. As much as I like building armies that don't win games, I don't see me building these. They're just. I kind of get what they're going with the it's the start of the codex, but at the same time I just don't see them being very good on the tabletop, worthy of taking the time to build them.
I like them.
Go ahead.
Driving straight up the gut, because at most of the time with my army builds, I have nothing to do with my tactical squads. This, I'm going to drive straight up the gut, make them blow me up. Then they have to dedicate a lot of firepower to me. I'll make sure that my HQ's on the board, so with the Ultramarines, whatever Legion trait or Commander, whatever bullcrap, that they see me, so they're rolling on my Praetor's leadership, and they're going to have to kill the whole entire squad so that I'm not going to blow up their tanks with my melta-guns.
Yeah, but one melta-gun or 2 melta-guns isn't going to do the job. Like in the
but it's gonna scare the bejesus out of some people.
If you put a 20-man on it, you're up to 4.
You can't. You can only go 10.
Oh, they're limited to 10.
Yep. Yeah, that's the biggest problem. Like if they were 20, yeah, I wouldn't mind just frog marching these boys out of a Spartan. 4 melta-guns is better than 2.
Yeah, I don't know. From the recent Alpha Legion lists I've been building, I would love to at least talk about if Alpha Legion can steal inductii. They probably can't, but if they could, I would rather steal these guys. No, okay, I say that. They're support squads, and Space Wolves aren't. Never mind.
Yes. Also, another thing that I like about these is, in my list, for the higher point level, if that's where we're going as a community, I start running out of slots in everything else, except for my troops. These would be a great fill-in for that.
And Jack makes the point, kind of pursuant to what John's been talking, where, if I'm correct, support squads proper don't get line, but these would still have line.
They do. because nothing in there says that they lose it.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but I do think that we've well established that these are one of the more polarizing inductii options.
I'm a fan.
For those of you who try them out, please write into the show and let us know how you felt about them. Did you win games? Did you lose games? Do you feel bad for taking them? Please, let us know. Brings us forward into Death Guard. Jack, do you know a thing or two about these guys?
Yep. Death Guard, hack squads. So that means you can take them up to 20. For every 5, you can exchange the Bolter for Alchem Flamer for 15 points. And then they get Barbarian Resistance to replace their Heart of the Legion, which basically, if you're 11 to 20 people on the table, you get nothing. If you're 10 to 6 people on the table, you get a 6-up damage mitigation road for unsafe wounds. And if you're 5 or less, that moves to a 5-up damage mitigation road for unsafe rooms. Any model may only take a single damage mitigation rune of any type for any given wound.
So
I don't
it's
see the reason.
it's important to point out that they are giving up part of the Legion, and this special rule does not give them a damage mitigation at 10 models, and it counts how many models you had for determining your mitigation at the start of each phase.
Right. I don't see any reason to run them more than 10, straight up. Where it's a task squad, you have line. I like Alchem Flamers. Again, this reminds me of why I would be taking the Ultramarines squad, putting the Flamers in there, driving it straight up the gut. Or, if I'm dealing with somebody that's going to be coming in from the side, kind of hanging out, holding an objective, and just being there. Because, again, the Death Guard armies that I've been tinkering around with have run out of spots for everything else.
Well, and it's pretty brutal and horrifying to consider that you retain your Fury special rule, and because you're Death Guard, you have super relentless baked in.
Yep.
So when you drop those Alchem Flamers, everybody else can still triple tap their bolters and then press forward into combat. And I think that makes these guys, especially because the Alchem Flamers are not going to run the risk of trapping you into thinking that your plasma gun or melt-a-gun is going to save you against a tank. I think that does a lot to kind of keep you narrowed in on the focus of, what am I here for? I'm here to harass infantry.
And I can't wait to hear a story from somebody where their inductii unit had to have more firepower poured into them than what it should because of that save.
Yep, and I do find overall, I do prefer Barber and Resilience to Heart of the Legion, even if just because, as you indicated, it gets better once you get a little thinned out, and it does not require you to be within 3 inches of an objective to be able to claim it. Now, that being said, if somebody, does their math and does their homework and is okay, I killed 4 of your guys, then you're only going to have a 6-up on those last 6 dudes for them to try to level the squad the rest of the way out. So there's a top tip if your regular opponents are Death Guard.
I'm okay. That was weird. I really like these guys. I don't know. Maybe I'm one of the only ones who does, but I really, really like this squad.
No, I don't think you're alone there.
No, you're not.
Along to a boogeyman, we have the Thousand Sons inductii. Thousand Sons inductii give up their cult, give up the ability to buy Asphyx rounds, and give up Fury of the Legion. I think this, short of Space Wolves, where they give up their sergeant, or maybe Night Lords, where they give up a point of leadership on their sergeant, I think this squad gives up more than any other squad that we've had to or gotten to read about so far. For the low price of giving up your cult and the privilege of buying Asphyx rounds and the Fury of the Legion special rule, you get unattuned practitioners, which becomes your cult, so to speak. When you make a shooting attack, you may make a psychic check before any 2-hit rolls are made. If it's successful, until the shooting attack is resolved, that attack has breaching 6+, and if it fails, you suffer Perils of the Warp at +1 wound for doing so. I don't particularly care for this, but I need more playtesting with Thousand Suns to figure out if that's a legitimate or fair opinion to hold. I feel like you're giving up so many stable and reliable things in an army that, in my experience, has been devoid of stable and reliable things to gain a extremely feast or famine ability that doesn't super meaningfully. So if we look at the standard tactical squad, if you can get them into 30 shots at Fury, you're going to be 30 shots, 20 hits, you're going to be 10 turns into 15 total armor saves with the Asphyx rounds. If you do this, and you both pass the psychic test and you get 2 shots a model, you're going to be 20 shots, 14 hits, you're going to snag 2 rends plus 5 armor saves. So those 5 armor saves will kill about 2 models. You're really not coming out that far ahead outside of not paying the 10 points for Asphyx rounds. You're really not coming out that far ahead for the fact that you had to take a psychic test on lead 8 or risk cooking yourself. It might be worth trying out, again, for folks who are like, I'm already putting 3 tactical squads on the table, might as well make one of them breaching. But this is not my first choice as far as, like, ways I would look to spend additional points in the Thousand Suns army, of which I feel there are a few. Duncan, you want to take Sons of Horus for us, or did somebody else pick those up?
I've got them. So it's the spoiler squads, which is again leaning heavily into the Sons of Horus being more close combat centric this edition than all arounder as before. Any model in the unit gets to replace their chainsword with a chain axe. Again, always making me happy. And in this one, you're going to replace Spite of the Legion with the Creed of Brutality. This one's a little wobbly, but it kind of works. At the start of each assault phase, if a unit that includes at least one model with this special rule has any models within 6 inches of a friendly model with Legion Astartes special Sons of Horus that has a weapon skill characteristic of 5 or more, all the models in this unit gain Rampage 1 and Furious Charge until the end of that phase.
Rampage 1 is massive because the entire unit gains it.
Yeah,
That's bonkers. And you're giving up Spite of the Legion, which is a rule that I don't particularly put a lot of stock in for this.
nor do I.
Whew, that's brutal.
Yeah. I'm going to have to either rebuild my current despoilers, or I'm going to have to build 2 more despoiler squads.
Just build 2 more.
Let's build 2 more.
Great, thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
I always wanted to paint more Sons of Horus. But yeah, if I'm going to put despoiler squads in the game for my Sons of Horus, they're going to be these guys, hands down. Unless I am taking them as compulsory, I'm going to take these guys every single time.
What are you going to hang out by them?
Honestly, probably a Contemptor. I'll probably run them up right alongside a Contemptor.
Contemptors, are your Reavers weapons 5?
Of course they are, but my Reavers are also focusing on bigger, nastier things.
That's fair. You can also take vets in that army.
Yep.
Your command squads are all going to be weapons 5. So, what is it? Your chieftains?
Are,
yep.
My, and this is a funny one that I thought of. When these guys do get into wherever and they don't have anyone near them, if you have Justarin who are deep striking in, drop the Justarin in right beside these guys, and then watch Justarin and these guys go to town.
And I think in your specific instance, I think it really highlights where and how these guys shine very deliberately by putting these guys on large scale crowd control. Take a couple losses. Even if you take a single loss on your way into close combat, you will be outnumbered, and that is enough to grant you Rampage.
Yep. And my favorite part about these guys is I'm going to use these guys more than I do my Javelin bikes to get the initial charge and let people shoot at them or what have you, so I can activate the Black Reaving right +2 attacks for everybody who charges into that combat. So you're already looking at 2 attacks on these guys, plus you're going to get the 2 bonus attacks from the Black Reaving, plus Rampage and Furious Charge when you'll be striking at strength 6. Yeah, I'm a fan. I mean, this is a good unit. This is a upgrade, not a downgrade or a side grade. This is a straight up upgrade for the Despoilers for Sons of Horus. So,
Fair enough. Does that get us to Dan for the Word Bearers?
Sure does. So the word bearers are Despoiler squads. Heart of the Legion. They gain the Trader rule. Empty vessels at the end of each game turn. Roll a d6 for each unit that does with this rule that does not have corrupted subtype. 1, if any enemy units were destroyed as a result of an attack or sweeping advance made by this unit during the game turn. Add 1 if the enemy warlord has been destroyed. On a 5+, this unit suffers a D3 wounds P and gain corrupted unit subtype and the Furious Charge special rule. So corrupted's all the demony stuff from Word Bears. I'm gonna remember out. I should have had this open and I didn't apologize. Charge is pretty cool.
Basically, they become demon,
Yeah.
little lower demons or whatever you want to call them, lesser demons.
They gain fear.
is that also the one that gives them the invulnerable save?
They're immune to effects of fear, pass regroup tests, fail morale due to weapons are useless. Fail, they don't fall back. They suffer a D3 automatic wounds with no save.
That's the big one typically is if you fail a leadership test, you do not lose ground and you do not become pinned. You just suffer casualties.
Yeah. And they get, in fear.
Yep. I don't know how much Word Bearers actually want to get their core choices as Despoiler squads and get those into close combat. But if you are playing that type of Word Bearer list, I think these guys could certainly be a reasonable pickup.
So salamanders?
On to salamanders. Did somebody pick these up in Michael's honor? Because he was pretty jazzed about these.
Well, it's a Despoiler squad. The sergeant has to increase his weapon skill to a 5. Dang.
Terrible shame.
Terrible shame. For 1 in every 10 models can upgrade. It may exchange his chainsword for one of the following: a flamer or a melt-a-gun. And then it has old school hate in close combat to hit rolls of 1 for attacks made with this model with can be re-rolled. So
it's not dependent on the charge, and you just get that all the time. You re-roll failed to hits of 1 in close combat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, considering you could snag either a Dragon's Breath Flamer or Melt-a-Gun per 5, I definitely get the appeal here. You lose out on the Artificer armor on the Sergeant, but these guys are going to break parity with a lot of other weapon skill 4 units just on virtue of snagging 1 to 2 extra hits off of the War Gear of Heroes rule. And the ability to take that Melt-a-Gun and punk some instant death wounds downrange, or the Dragon's Breath Flamer, which is Strength 5, AP 4, and a D6 on Overwatch. I'm sorry, a D6 on reaction fire, because it's not just Overwatch. Definitely seems pretty capable. Do we know, are Despoiler Squad sergeants allowed to take Thunderhammers?
No.
Oh, thank goodness.
But you can get a Fire Fist.
Yep, that's still pretty good, turns out.
And a weapon skill 5 power fist is still better than no weapon skill 5 power fist.
Yep,
Mhm.
that's where I said it's real easy to break parity with that scoring choice relative to others. And was it Spite of the Legion or Heart that you gave up for that reroll ones to hit?
Spite.
Hey, so
Spite of the Legion.
you're giving up a rule that I'm not super jazzed about, getting a rule I am jazzed about, and then getting a slight little bit of gas to your sergeant and shooting. That seems pretty capable if you're wanting to play aggressive salamanders. Very nice.
Yeah. I think I would pick weapon skill 5 over a 2-up save in this instance and be okay with it.
You know, I certainly could see the argument. The problem will come if you end up roped into a challenge or something, but you could always flip the other end and take a power sword or a power maul instead of a fist, and just make those greater volume of attacks with a better weapon skill.
See, I in this case, I would primarily be running these guys at other despoilers or tackles. I wouldn't count on running them against like
Anything
elite units.
Yeah.
But in that case, I would absolutely stick a power axe or a power fist on this sergeant just because of that weapon skill 5 and have him punk out apothecaries, have him punk out regular unit sergeants, have him punk out Terminator sergeants. I mean,
Just start asking opponents, did you pay your artificer tax?
yeah, pretty much.
You're gonna wish you hadn't, because I didn't.
Oh, yeah, that's really a nice rule for that unit.
It is.
Subject
And
of
it gives salamanders something they desperately need. Like,
what? Something to be excited about?
yes.
Rimshot.
Oh.
Speaking of rules that have me peaked, Raven Guard inductii. So their tactical squads replace Heart of the Legion, which I personally don't value Heart of the Legion on Raven Guard tactical squads because they've already got their, Talons rule, or whatever it is that gives them infiltrate and a 6-up shroud. So already I'm not super invested in Heart of the Legion because I think a 6-up shroud for what a tactical squad is going to be doing is generally at least approximately equitable. So you replace Heart of the Legion with Unchained Conviction, a unit composed entirely of models with this special rule, which fails a pinning check, is not pinned, but instead retreats 7 inches directly away. If this brings the unit into contact with the edge of the battlefield, do not move it any further. So this already, even without you buying a Legion Vexilla, cannot throw you off the table. Once all models have been moved, there are no further effects. The unit is not considered pinned. If the unit is required to make this move during a charge, the charge automatically fails. The unit is displaced from the position it occupied when the charge was declared. So we've made some references pretty persistently to 5th edition. Does anybody remember the specific series of FAQs that came around the "and they shall know no rules"? "and they shall know no fear" special rule during 5th edition?
Yes.
9 inches.
Oh my gosh, you got to fall back 2d6, regroup 3 inches, and then move and behave normally during your turn. I know that these don't behave normally, but the pinning check does not actually cause you to fall back. It just displaces the unit. This rule is bonkers. Remember when I said I really value the ability to get corrupted on Wordbearer's core choices because it means that you don't cede ground? This is the same kind of thing, but instead of not ceding ground, you are willing to cede ground for the fact that you never lose combat potential. That's bonkers. This is straight nuts. This is the poster child for this is why they had to make it support squads only. Wow, I'm enthusiastic about these inductii. These are incredible.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the best rules in here for inductii.
And it's probably the only one that I personally would put it in as close a contest with. are the Alpha Legion inductii. Alpha Legion tactical squads replace Heart of the Legion with a special ability called Treacherous Lure. Treacherous Lure says a unit made up entirely of models with this special rule may not be selected as the target of shooting attacks in any phase of the first game turn of the battle. However, the unit may be a target of a shooting attack made as part of the interceptor reaction and may suffer hits or wounds from attacks that scatter onto it or are otherwise allocated due to the effects of another special rule. Your tactical squads, with this special rule, have a get-out-of-jail-free card for the entire first game turn, and all it costs you is your Heart of the Legion. As somebody like me, where I don't tend to buy and staple a lot of apothecaries onto people, this, again, is extremely potentially oppressive. So if you took, I don't know, Headhunter Leviathal, which lets you take your compulsory troop choices as Headhunter squads, and then filled out your actual scoring choices with inductii, your inductii can actually fire without fear of repercussion, because they cannot be targeted by the shooting attack, which says that if you go to return fire, sorry about you. You're not sure if I'm firing on you accidentally or deliberately. This is really, really strong if you plan to have a list that wants to settle the game out in the first 1 to 3 turns. Wow.
So you and I have actually talked about this unit a little bit. Yikes. Yeah, this one, there's a lot of shenanigans you can pull off with this unit, and it's really, really, really nice. For my buddy Corin, I'm probably gonna build 1, if not 2 units of these.
They're so good. If you were are recon squads support squad, or are they compulsory?
I don't have anything open that would tell me, unfortunately, at the moment.
Yeah, that's okay. Give me just a minute and I'll dig it up real quick.
There's support squads.
Oh, that's a shame. I was going to say, man, if you got to take recon squads as compulsory and then bubble these guys in behind them. But even then, like, I don't know, let's imagine you take a armored spearhead, and you bring these guys first turn, or as your actual scoring choices instead of normal tactical squads. The fact that you can just, like, roll up and start racking slides and going for bolter fire against heavy weapon squads. Admittedly, you've still got to run the risk of getting tangled up in close combat because they are allowed to charge you. Just super, super potent. Lot of shenanigans that you can pull off here. And especially if you can then screen these units with units that are themselves combat capable. We've made some various points about, like, destroyers. Turns out destroyers, when they have rad grenades and counterattack, and possibly, like, I don't know, the ability to be 2 inches further away, those units kind of start getting a little nasty about, like, do I actually want to run the risk of charging into that unit and having it flip the script on me? I don't know. Never mind, like, oh, did I borrow some suzerains from somebody in order to have kind of a close combat threat? Just a lot of list construction possibilities here that leave me very excited.
Yeah, so I've been fiddling with the idea of taking Dynat as the warlord and infiltrating these guys forward, and then having 2 of them just Fury of the Legion at whatever nonsensical unit of troops needs to be deleted because they can't react to it, and just
Yup.
here, eat a lot of bolter fire for absolutely no reason that you should not be able to do this fast, this early in the game. I dig this unit a lot.
It's pretty good, Chip. So yeah, there's a relatively quick and dirty rundown on our 18 inductii types. Does anybody else have any parting notes before we wrap this one up?
Like it's been said, I was gonna say, like it's been said before, they're all fluffy. I mean, so it just depends on, like, what you're looking for, kind of like in these units. You know, like what you want to do with them.
Yeah, I think we pointed at a couple where we were like, these are seemingly suboptimal, but the vast majority fell into what we seem to like as a butter zone of completely playable without upending the game, and that's super exciting.
The only thing I think about this as a whole for the armies I already have is that I need to get more chain axes. Yep.
That you do.
Was that thought different than before this book released, though?
Yes, actually it was, because before this book released, as far as I was concerned, I was done building or painting any more Sons of Horus. I didn't really think I needed to. I had enough for what I play and what I enjoy. And now I need to get more Sons of Horus and chain axes for them. Oh well. First world problems.
Well, all right. It sounds like we've had a lot to talk about this show, and we look forward to coming back in future shows and running through Sons of Horus, Imperial Fists, the campaign content, as well as a little more pointed conversation probably about the Legion Decurions. Otherwise, until that time, I've been Jacob, and for this 44th episode of the Heresy Accountability Buddies, I've been joined by...
Dan.
Duncan.
Jack?
Jamie.
And we're also glad to have been joined by some of our EOs in Cody and Michael, and we're glad to have been joined by you, listeners. Thank you for joining us. Stay accountable to your hobby and to your buddies, and we'll see you next time.